Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to do a quick bill hearing and then go into voting session. I'm going to actually present this. It's House Bill 1486, and it's just the motor fuel tax-free period. It's in the same position that our bill is in. Posture is exactly the same. Are there any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, one down. What do you got? Anything? Okay, listen up. First bill, second bill, actually.
Senate Bill 942.
Senator, it was your bill.
This is Senator Griffith's bill from EHE. EHE voted this bill earlier today, I believe. The bill creates a grant program for urban agriculture programs. The reason that this committee's secondary on it is there is a mandate in there. It's a mandate of $500,000 a year for fiscal 24, 25, and 26 and 27. So it would be $2 million total over 4 fiscal years. And the grants would be provided to nonprofit organizations that operate farm or community gardens in urban areas in the state.
What's the number?
It's Senate Bill 942, sorry.
All's in favor? Opposed?
And that's on as amended by the EHE committee. They tweak some definitions, but nothing significant with regard to the bill.
Okay, do we have any more from other committees?
I have one. Senator Elfrith had a bill that came up, and do you remember the bill number, Senator? 830. And I had some notes on this. Let me see if I can find it. Give me just a second. We move quick here. Senate Bill 830 is the Natural Resources Oyster Spat, Shells, and Substrate Bill. It impacts multiple programs. First off, it creates a program within Marbidco and requires Marbidco to provide loans to seafood dealers to help finance the cost of seafood processing projects that will help them retain more oyster shells. That program would have a $1 million mandate in fiscal 24. The EHE amendments tweak the program a little bit. It's a loan program that then is repaid based on the amount of oyster shells the processors return. The second program in here is a grant program that DNR is going to operate for restaurants, seafood processors, community associations, and other nonprofits. It'll provide grants to try and retain more oyster shells. The third item here, and this is probably of interest to the committee, is it repeals the oyster shell recycling tax credit. This was a tax credit that's been on the books for a few years now, but it hasn't been widely used. Repealing it saves about $20,000 a year, which, as you can imagine, means it's not getting used as much as I think the initial sponsors would have hoped. There is a survey that's going to be done of submerged areas in the state. That's going to be done by the Maryland Geological Survey. And there's mandated funding for that survey in fiscal years 24 through 26. It's $2 million a year for the survey to be done. There
What are
is.
we gonna get out of that? Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that section of the bill is a bay bottom survey, which we've not done as a state since the early 1980s, but we are still using many maps from the Yates survey that was conducted in the early 20th century. So a lot of our understanding of the bay bottom is actually over 100 years old. So this bay bottom survey would give us a lot more information of what's down there.
That sounds pretty important.
I would venture to agree.
It is very important, and it was in part of a bill and an amendment I had tried to get through, I think, about 3 years ago. So thank you.
Yep, you can keep going.
The next significant part of the bill is research relating to oyster substrate. This would require UMCES to collaborate with the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center and the Virginia Institute of Marine Science to research issues relating to oyster substrate and report back to DNR by December 1st, 2025. There is some funding for UMCES to carry out the project. There's a mandate for 24 and 25 of $500,000. The final piece establishes the intent of the General Assembly that we try and hit certain oyster hatchery benchmarks by the year 2025. There was also in this piece a provision that would have required the establishment of a new hatchery. EHE took that out, I think because the cost of that was $20 million a year. So that was the significant fiscal piece of the bill, and that has been struck from the bill. The committee did leave in a provision that would require a $2.5 million mandate for the Patuxent Environmental and Agricultural Research Laboratory, Morgan State University, to be used for infrastructure upgrades to support increased oyster production for research and restoration. And then there is one final mandate in here for fiscal years 24 through 26, $2 million to be used to enhance public fisheries and restoration work in Eastern Bay.
Very good. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee, this is a bill we've been working on for what seems like a long time, but I want to thank a number of folks in this committee for helping us. It's not a chicken or an egg situation. We are trying to make kind of targeted investments in our oyster population. And to do that, we kind of have to hit three pieces: spat production, spats, baby oyster. So we have to increase that spat production. We have to increase our shell retention for those baby oysters to actually have something to grab onto. And we also have to have a better understanding of the bay bottom and the substrate on the bay bottom. So all three of those pieces are kind of are touching each other in the bill. And it is very much a rising tide lifting all boats. There were a lot of concessions made by every stakeholder to get to the amendments EHE accepted downstairs. And with that, I move favorable.
Yes, sir. Senator?
I got one question. There's some bills that are out there that want to, and I know some people are for it and some people are against it, okay, but are dredging in some areas. I've talked with many of our watermen and those that fish, those that crab, you know, I've met with a lot of them, I talked with a lot of them. And I know there's a lot of difference here.
Yeah.
But more than anything, I want to work with them, as I've told them many times
Yeah.
over, to go to substrate areas, to go to areas where we can benefit, to make sure that if anything's out of state, comes back in state. If anything goes into a restaurant, it goes back into the water. And that's, I mean, there's a few other things we can do.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about this for years, as you said, and you've been planning this out, I'm sure, for years. But I don't, and there's a lot of women that do not want to go in certain areas for dredging. And that's a concern for us, and that's my only concern. And if we're not doing anything like that, I'm more than happy to support this bill 110%.
Senator, thank you very much. This is intentionally devoid of policy, and it is an investment bill. It is targeted investments. It's not saying dredge over here or not fish over there. It has nothing to do with policy. It's about where are we investing to get to a greater oyster population. So I know exactly what project you're talking about. This bill doesn't say anything about it, doesn't make a judgment call on it,
Right.
just investment.
And I appreciate that, and this first time me looking at this bill, but I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Senator, we just did the capital budget a few minutes ago, and there was another chunk of money in there for oyster spat production.
For critical maintenance at the Horn Point Lab, yes, it needs significant critical maintenance. It's a 20-year-old facility. And then the other piece that Matt spoke to, Morgan State has a really exciting but kind of little-known hatchery called Pearl, where they're training students in, they have a new degree in coastal restoration. So Bill also will have the added benefit of helping to train the next generation of scientists.
Very good. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. All right, let's see how far we get on these. Got the green light now on the bills. Well, we've got 3 of the 5 bills that the House has moved on some sales and use tax exemptions. The first one is 488.
Senate Bill 488 is the sales and use tax exemption for medical devices. This bill would exempt medical or clinical thermometers, pulse oximeters, blood pressure monitors from the sales and use tax.
Is that in the same posture as the House bill?
Philip, can you pull up the cross file? It's House Bill 364. One of the sales and use tax bills that the House sent over included respirators, like face masks. And that was the only amendment, and I can't remember whether. What's that, Philip?
364
does have the respirators. So the House amended it to add respirators. So if you'd like to consider the House's amendment, we can incorporate
How do
it
you feel
in.
about that, Senator?
I feel like that is an important tool that will keep citizens healthier and take a proactive approach to
Excellent.
monitoring one's health status.
All right, so we'll get an amendment and the bill. Is there a motion? Yes?
I have a motion, but I have a question. I don't know the numbers in my head. What's the cost of this one?
Oh, this one is 4.5 to 4.9 million.
Move favorable.
Okay, as amended, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 571, oral hygiene products.
Senate Bill 571 exempts the sale of toothbrushes, toothpaste, tooth powders, mouthwash, dental floss, and similar oral hygiene products from the sales and use tax. The cost is estimated to be about $5.4 million in the first year, ramping up to $5.9 million by fiscal '27.
Is this in the same posture as the one over there?
There were only sponsor amendments in the House.
Okay. It'll go nicely with the fact that we're going to move, the finance is going to move the increased dental program for adults in Medicaid.
Move favorable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yep. 571. 316.
Senate Bill 316 is another sales and use tax exemption bill. This one is for diapers. This would exempt the sale of children's diapers from the sales and use tax. This one costs about $7.5 million in the first fiscal year, and it ramps up to $8.1 million by fiscal year 2027.
Same posture.
Same posture.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. This 571, you want to do that one, Addie, on the floor? The oral hygiene ones. Okay. Did we work out the nurses LARP program?
Not quite.
Okay, that's fine. Did we work out the non-public educational programs?
If you'd like. Do you want me to? Okay.
I mean, if it's not ready, we can.
No,
wait.
I have a reprint. I just wanted to make sure the sponsor was ready to talk on it. Oh, yeah, we stuck it in the Friday
706,
pile.
706.
Where is it, Kim?
I gotta find it, I don't even.
Well, I can briefly describe it because it's really simple, and then you can look at it. So basically, when we left this last time, it had, a complicated cost-sharing thing for the additional teacher salaries that would be required at these non-public schools. Instead, the idea was to simplify it and just have a state grant of $4 million, which is the amount that's currently fenced in the budget for fiscal 2023, to go to these schools. The grant would go to the department. The department would then distribute the grant to the schools, basically, pro rata for each child that is in the school.
The department being,
MSDE.
so they've got to distribute to each of the schools.
Yep.
Each of the non-public.
Yep, and an equal amount for each child served at those schools.
Okay. And is that 4 million, I seem to think it was a little higher cost before. Is that going to cover it?
Yeah, I mean, under the prior bill, the cost for the state was about 10.
Okay. Senator?
Yeah. The intent is salaries, right? Raising salaries? That's a question for Senator Zucker. That's the intent?
Yeah, so I think if you peel back the onion, yes, that is the intent, is to help towards salaries, but there might be other costs that the school might need. The bottom line is that the tuition is paid for through MSDE.
Right.
So I think, and first, let me just thank Senator Griffith, Senator Eckert, Senator Elford, other folks that were involved with helping it get this bill in the best posture possible. I think what Senator Griffith might add, is that we also had some type of reporting requirement. I think we wanted just to study what other things were needed, because it might not necessarily just be salaries, but that was the focus, to make sure that they're getting the attention they deserve.
The reason I asked the question is I have a bill that SEIU, I guess, asked me to put in, dealing with making sure that the increased rates that we're providing to different institutions where their folks work actually go to the workers.
Yeah.
And in this case, I think we think the workers in these schools are not unionized. So I'm trying to get my head around, the intent is to get it for higher salaries, but there's no requirement that it go to higher salaries. I'm not objecting to it, I'm just trying to really understand it. So they give them more money and we hope it goes to higher salaries, is that sort of the idea?
Yeah, I mean, that's the, and I think that's what the schools are planning on doing. I mean, that's what they need.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just similar, because these schools could absolutely use more funding generally, but it's certainly our intent that it will go to salaries. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, I want to thank the sponsor and all of those who've contributed to the conversation, including some representatives from some organizations, advocates in the schools. It is absolutely the intent that these resources be used to help with what they've identified as a need, which is additional resources for salaries. We also felt it was important, though, that the message that we were kind of getting is that they weren't getting enough resources. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't create a whack-a-mole situation where we take care of this and then another need is just waiting on the horizon. So we thought it would be helpful to look at the criteria, and I understand it's a very complicated process that MSDE goes through to determine what the per pupil rates are, and there was a study done a couple of years ago, but we certainly wanted to take a comprehensive look. So this was a short-term solution to what is probably an ongoing conversation that we need to have in terms of making sure the needs are met of these students.
And right now, it's the local government in each jurisdiction that's responsible for
Split.
50/50.
Ish.
Well, this should make it a little better on the state side in terms of, yes? I guess. It's interesting. It doesn't necessarily force the counties to put up more money.
It just increases our contribution.
Yep,
Yeah.
got it.
The mandate is strictly for the state
Got it.
budget.
Okay, Senator McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I looked over the bill, and I know that the intent is in reference to it going to the wages, but I didn't see the intent in the bill. And I think that the other thing that's important is if this is for wages, making sure that it doesn't supplement. So if we're trying to make sure that workers get the money, making sure that it's on top of what they already have versus supplementing some of that cost for wages.
Are you suggesting it needs language to do that?
Probably like, I would think being clear on what the intent is, but also making sure that it doesn't supplement what's already there, and we're dealing with this problem 5-10 years from now.
Senator Zucker?
That is the intent. Let's do the intent.
To speak to the supplement, not supplant, just by virtue of there being a formula in the code for what happens now, and then this additional money, it is formula +4. So it's not gonna supplant their existing money. At least in terms of where it goes. Now, what a school chooses to do with it, that's their own thing, but, yep.
So, go ahead, ask your question.
No, I just want to clarify, so we're talking about some language to clarify that. I just want to be sure we're talking about additional language to clarify it. I'm all on
Right.
board, thank you.
Erica,
Yeah,
I
mean,
just
it could-
heard you suggest that maybe it didn't need it on that one aspect of it. Does it need,
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to express the intent, it could just simply be a sentence that says it's the intent of the General Assembly that the schools prioritize perhaps salary increases.
Yep.
You know, that, okay.
okay. Okay, as amended, as we just discussed.
Favorable.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. It was unanimous. This is budget and tax. All right, so we're doing the floor in 5 minutes, and evidently they are on time. So we should probably get.
Do we have a plan for tomorrow?
Probably.
Can it be shared?
I don't know what it is yet. Someone would have to share it with me first.